Hey guys, today we're going to make soft pretzels. This is one of my favorite soft pretzel recipes. It's pretty easy and it's really delicious. So let's get started.
The ingredients that you will need for this recipe are 1½ cups of warm water, 1 tablespoon salt, 1 tablespoon sugar, 2¼ teaspoons or 1 packet of active dry yeast, 4½ cups of flour, 3 tablespoons of oil divided into 2 tablespoons and 1 tablespoon, 2/3 cup baking soda, 1 egg for an egg wash, which is optional, and salt for sprinkling over the tops of the pretzels. You can use coarse salt or pretzel salt. I'm just using what I have in my pantry, which happens to be kosher salt.
The first thing that we're going to do is called blooming the yeast. You may have heard of yeast before. It's these small granules that you put into bread to make it rise. Our yeast is different from our other ingredients because it's actually alive. Right now our yeast is asleep and we need to wake it up to put it into our pretzels. In a way, the yeast is kind of like Jesus. Jesus died and everybody thought he was in the tomb. They couldn't see him and they didn't really know what had happened. Then Jesus rose from the dead and people saw him and heard of the great sacrifice that he had made for each and every one of us. If you look at our yeast now, it's kind of difficult to see what it's capable of doing. But when we add it to the water and sugar, it'll wake up and then rise our dough, and we will all be able to celebrate all that the yeast has done for us. To wake up our yeast, we're going to put the warm water into the bowl and then add the salt and the sugar and then stir it to combine. Once it's dissolved, we're going to take our yeast and sprinkle it over the top and then give it a little stir. Now we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. What can I do for 5 minutes? I think that I'll pray to God and thank God for the gift of Jesus Christ and all that he's done for us. Can you do that too? Great. See you in 5 minutes. We're back. We've let this yeast bloom for 5 minutes and it has some bubbles, it's a little foamy, there's some clumps. It's exactly what we want. This yeast is woken up and ready to go into our dough. If it doesn't look like it gets woken up, you can let it sit for a couple more minutes and then put it in. Now to our yeast, we're going to add our flour. And our 2 tablespoons of oil. And now we're going to stir them to combine. You can start this process with a spoon or a spatula, but eventually you're going to have to get in there with your hands and make sure that there's no flour or dry clumps left. My dough is getting a little bit harder to stir, so at this point I'm going to clean off the spoon, and I have clean hands. I'll clean off the spoon and start kneading it with my hands until completely combined. All right, our dough is looking pretty good. There's no big spots of flour and the bowl is pretty clean. So that's how we know we're done. So now we're gonna take our dough out of the bowl and we're gonna take our remaining 1 tablespoon of oil and we're gonna put it in the bowl and spread it all around. And this is gonna grease the bowl so that the dough doesn't stick to it while it's rising. And now we can take our dough and we're going to put it in our bowl and we're going to flip it over once so that the whole thing is covered in oil. And now I'm going to wash my hands and then we can come back and cover this with a towel or plastic wrap to let it rise for an hour. We've wrapped our bowl in plastic wrap and we're going to let it sit for an hour in a warm place. Our yeast is going to go do its job and when we come back, it will have risen. What can we do for an hour? What about teaching a sibling or a loved one about prayer and telling them your favorite way to pray? Or you could make up a fun dance or a song, or draw a picture or write a story that shows your prayer and thankfulness to God, singing God's praises. Take some time to think about what you're thankful for and who or what in your life may need a little extra care that you could pray for. There are so many different ways to pray. I know you'll find one that feels right to you. Hey guys, welcome back. Wow, look at our dough. Look how much it's risen. It's crazy. Okay, now we're going to take our dough and divide it into 8 pieces, or more pieces if you want smaller pretzels. Now, one by one, we're going to roll each of these pieces into a long rope, kind of like you're going to make a snake. Now that we have a long enough rope, we're going to twist it into a pretzel. We're going to do this by laying it down, and then we're going to twist the 2 ends twice, and then you lay it back down, and you can kind of fix it up, make it into a pretzel. Now, as you shape each pretzel, you're going to want to shape it and then place it onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, so you're ready to go. Now do this with the rest of your pretzels. You can also make other shapes. You could make a circle, or you could braid it. You could make a heart. One of my favorites is to do it in a coil and make a little snail. Once you're done shaping all your pretzels, you're going to fill a pot of water about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way full, and then you're going to take your baking soda and you're going to put it in and stir it until it's dissolved. Now we're going to bring the pot and our pretzels over to the stove.
While you are shaping and boiling your pretzels, it's a great time to preheat your oven. We're going to bake the pretzels at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Bring your pot of water to a boil. One by one, take your pretzels and place them into the water. Let them boil on one side for about 30 seconds, flip, and then the other side for another 30 seconds. Remove the pretzel from the water and let the excess drip off, and then replace back onto the baking sheet. If you're going to use an egg wash, now is the time to do so. Crack an egg into a bowl and beat until combined. Use a brush to brush the tops of the pretzels with the egg wash, and then sprinkle with salt. I prefer to not use an egg wash because I find that it makes the pretzels taste kind of eggy. Instead, I just take the pretzels out of the pot, place them on the baking sheet, and sprinkle with salt. Once you have boiled all your pretzels, place them in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes until golden brown.
Here are the pretzels that we made today. These pretzels are so good. They make such a delicious snack. And best of all, you just made them yourself from scratch. How cool is that? Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you so much for baking with me today. I had so much fun. Have a great day. Bye.